I love Disney. It's everything that could be so popular as it is today. I've been in love with anything related to Disney ever since I started watching it as a kid. From the day Disney started to the movies we have today. I mean, it's great. But one of my all-time favorites of all Disney movies was Tarzan. Tarzan was a Disney movie that was made in 1999, and I was at least 9 years old when that movie came out. I remember watching that movie from the theaters, to watching it on VHS, to DVD. Nowadays, DVDs are what we have today. And although I've discovered a more dark version of this movie back in 2016, I really wish I could see it again to compare this version that I saw with the Tarzan Disney movie that we have today. And if you don't know what Tarzan is, let me fill you out. Tarzan was based on the novel series by Edgar Rice Burroughs. He wrote an entire series of 24 books, but I've never actually read them. I was so into his works of books that I recently started to read the novels, and well, they're a lot darker than the Disney Tarzan movie we have today. And now on to the event that happened to me, that made me look at the Tarzan movie differently. See, it all started back in mid-2015, where I got a job at Best Buy during the summer. Phones, tablets, computers are sold, typically. We sometimes have some movies every once in a while come in the store. Mostly video games and game consoles, but I wanted to work at Best Buy because my sister, we used to go there in her teens, she would buy me movies whenever they had them, and video games. She's 32 years old. She used to work at Best Buy when I was in high school, nearly my graduating year. She ended up quitting her job for financial reasons, and I worked with Best Buy for a couple of months. It was April of 2016, and I was really busy with my job. It was so tiring whenever my shifts would end. I never had the energy to do the things that I liked to do, even the things I wanted to do. Every once in a while, I'd sit on my couch to relax and watch a Disney movie, and that was the day that I finally did so. It was a Friday, I remember. It was a stressful day at work, despite customers being pushy and rude here and there. I, of course, had to put up with them. Luckily for me, it was my break time, so I drove out of the Best Buy plaza and went to a restaurant. It wasn't far from where the plaza was for lunch, so I walked inside Taco Bell. Wasn't busy, thankfully. I ordered my food and waited. Standing next to me was a guy. He seemed to be around my age. He looked at me, gave him a smile, even though the stressful thoughts of the workday clouded my mind. Having a stressful day? He asked me as I turned my head to face him. Yeah. Best Buy can be filled with assholes, I'll tell you that. Oh, do you work at Best Buy? I asked him, seeing that he had a Best Buy worker shirt on with his name John on it. Yeah, I'm actually new here. I started working last month. I've seen you in Best Buy before. I think you're awesome at what you do. John replied as his food was ready at the same time as mine. We grabbed our food and he offered me to have lunch with him. I said yes. As we were eating, we talked about what we both liked and disliked, and when I mentioned Disney movies, we talked in more detail. When I said to John about Tarzan being one of my favorite Disney movies, I explained to him that I couldn't find it on DVD anywhere. I tried ordering one online, but that DVD didn't work. Have you ever bought a movie from Google Play? John then asked me. I haven't bought a movie from Google Play before. I usually use iTunes for that. And I tried looking for the Tarzan movie there, but I couldn't seem to purchase it because my old iPhone was, old. It didn't work very much anymore. I got a new phone for Christmas, though. I replied to John, who looked at his Samsung. I had the same phone as he did, with a cover on the back. You should be able to get it on Google Play without a problem. And if you do, you can contact me at Best Buy, and I could figure the problem out. John said as I finished my lunch, and smiled at him before leaving the restaurant to go back to my car and head back to work. I smiled, thanked him for lunch, and when I got home from work, my fiancé was working late on a night shift. I went to my phone and went to the Google Play app. I searched up the Tarzan movie. I ended up getting a few results. The one I saw was a Tarzan movie that read Tarzan 1998. And I was confused. Wait a minute. It took me a second to realize that something was off. Tarzan came out in 99, not 98. I then did some research, and it said that the production of Disney's Tarzan was made sometime between 1997 and 1998, and then released in 1999. And that maybe it was a pre-made version of it. I was still very much confused, but then I decided to look at the ratings of this weird 98 version, and there were only 2 reviews. The ratings were ranging in the 1 out of 5 star range. I looked through the comments of the movie, and one of them said that this was way too violent for children. Another review said that it was more of a darker tone to it than the 99 version. Even though the movie was dark anyway, it was at least semi-kid-friendly, or at least kid-friendly mostly. It definitely left me with more questions than answers, though. I thought this movie was pre-made in 98. And I was lucky enough to see it as the other 2 people that reviewed the movie did, so curiosity got the better of me. I took a look at the cover, and to my surprise, it was the special edition cover. It had Tarzan on the front with Turk, Jane, Tantor, Kala, and everything else that I recognized. So I purchased it. I waited a few moments when I went to play the movie from my phone. I got my earbuds, sat on the couch, and started watching it. Most of the intro played normally. But when it comes to Kala and Kerchak waking up to Sabor, who was chasing their baby, the scene went a little out of place. It seemed longer than I thought it was going to be. Showed the baby gorilla being killed by Sabor by having him sinking his teeth into the baby gorilla. I thought there was going to be blood and guts, but thankfully there was none. The screen then cuts to Kerchak and Kala, heartbroken by the sight of their baby being killed. I'll give them this, the 1998 version of the movie was dark, but I knew that the 1999 version of Tarzan was dark anyway, even though it was kind of semi-kid-friendly. I guess I just didn't expect Disney to go this dark. Maybe since this was a pre-made version of the movie, it didn't make it to the final project. The scene where Kala saves baby Tarzan and is rescued by Sabor was all normal. No change whatsoever at the thought that this movie was untouched in certain parts. However, when I got to the part where Kerchak and Kala were talking about baby Tarzan, things started to get fucked. Kala, I cannot let you put our family in danger, Kerchak said to his mate. It was the scene where Kerchak wants Kala to take baby Tarzan back, but Kala refused. Does he look dangerous to you? Kala asked Kerchak, then got really pissed off and roared at Kala, making baby Tarzan cry. He was at the stance where he wanted to hit his mate. I was getting scared. I thought Kerchak was going to abuse her, but he didn't. He instead finally gave in. He can stay, Kerchak said. But that doesn't make him my son. When the scene cuts to Tarzan as a child, he was hanging around Turk, who was an ape friend to him. He dares Tarzan to get the elephant hair, which is where things start to get even more messed up from here on. I was more scared than anything at this point when the elephants were freaking out when they thought that Tarzan was a piranha. Turk and his friends just stared at the scene for a few seconds as the elephants started the stampede, Surprisingly enough, it was a little graphic through this scene where the other gorillas were in the jungle. At first, the gorillas didn't know what was happening until the elephants charged through the jungle, and everyone just got out of the way just in time. At first, everyone thought that everyone was out of the way. But one of the baby gorillas was trampled to death by elephants. I close my eyes at this point. I can't have a look at what's bound to happen, but I could hear the baby gorilla's cry as the elephants were crushing it. After the scene was over, Kerchak looked in horror along with the other gorillas at the sight of the dead body. I can see that Kerchak was sad, but angry at the same time. All the other gorillas mourn over the loss of the dead baby that didn't have the chance to live a good life. The next scene cuts to Turk and Tantor, who thought Tarzan had died, drowning while being trampled by the elephants. "He's alive," Turk said while hugging her friend. Tarzan showed Turk that he got the elephant hair. "I don't believe it. You got the hair." Turk was surprised that Tarzan did the dare without dying, and Tantor was explaining that he had lots of hair when Kerchak's booming voice was heard. "What happened?" Kerchak said with anger. Turk and Tantor stepped back as Tarzan walked up slowly to an angry Kerchak. He explained that he was just playing with Turk and her friends. Tarzan then tried to apologize when Kerchak snapped. "You killed someone!" His voice boomed with rage. It was an accident," Tarzan replied. He was scared by the fact that Kerchak's yelling in anger was so loud. He didn't mean to kill someone, but Kala got to Tarzan's side to defend him from the angry Kerchak. "He's only a child," Kala said. "That's no excuse, Kala. You can't keep defending him like that." Kerchak growled. "He'll learn." Kala was then cut off by Kerchak's ranting. "He'll never learn. He can't learn to be one of us." "That's because you never give him a chance." "Give him a chance?" Kerchak asked. He didn't care what Kala had to say about Tarzan only being a kid, even if he wasn't a gorilla. "Kala, look at him. He will never be one of us." "Kerchak!" Kala said to him as Tarzan, who at this point felt hurt by the words, made him run off away from his adoptive mother and Kerchak. The film went nice and smoothly from the scene showing Tarzan growing up as an adult, and even the song Son of Man sung by Phil Collins was in great quality. When we get to see Tarzan fighting Sabor successfully, Tarzan kills Sabor to get trust from Kerchak. However, the silverback still doesn't trust him, even if he killed the jaguar that was a threat to the tribe. The next scene where Tarzan spots Clayton with Professor Porter and his daughter Jane, this is when shit hit the fan. Jane goes off when a baby baboon stole her sketchbook, so she tries to get it back. But the scene went very different after this line was said by Jane. "Come on now, enough of this. I want this paper on the count of 3, 2, 1. "Oh, look at bananas." Jane made the baby baboon look as Jane snatched the paper with one of her drawings. She was then greeted by a whole bunch of baboons chasing her. Tarzan sees what was going on, so he swings on a vine so he can save her, as he grabs her by the time she was close to a dead end. The baboon chase went on a bit longer than I remember. When Tarzan saves Jane from being mauled by the others, they started to attack each other. And that was creepy in and of itself. I mean, why would they attack each other when they're supposed to attack Jane? I didn't know. Tarzan got to a tree where he and Jane would be safe. Tarzan then started to get close to Jane, only curious about what Jane was. When he took her glove off, he soon realized that Jane was a human. That would mean he is one too. But Tarzan, who naturally can't speak English, listens to Jane saying, "It's very nice." Tarzan repeated what Jane said. She looked surprised when Tarzan talked to her, stopping Jane from talking, and used his ape language that he learned from the gorillas. Tarzan repeated his name again, and soon Jane got the idea that Tarzan was his name. "Oh, I see," Jane replied. Then Tarzan repeated what Jane said. No. I'm Jane." Jane introduced herself to Tarzan. No. I'm Jane," Tarzan replied, even though he only repeated stuff in English only when Jane spoke to him. No. Jane stopped Tarzan for a minute so that she could show him the better way to introduce herself. "Jane, Tarzan, Jane," Jane replied as Tarzan repeated her name when a gunshot from Clayton echoed through the jungle. Jane then asks Tarzan if he could take her to her camp, which Tarzan agrees. He picks her up and swings through the jungle to take her to her camp. After Tarzan's animal friends trashed Jane's camp, Tarzan and Jane get to it. Jane was in a look of surprise. She saw gorillas. "Gorillas," she says in amazement, as Tarzan was playing with Turk and talking like a gorilla. "He's one of them." Jane was surprised to see that Tarzan was raised by gorillas. When Kerchak showed up, everyone left as soon as Clayton and Professor Porter walked into the camp to see that Jane was unharmed. She went on telling her father and Clayton about how she was chased by baboons and about Tarzan saving her. The next scene cuts to Kerchak warning the tribe about the humans that are strangers to them. But Tarzan argues a bit with Kerchak about the strangers that he met, and that they couldn't hurt them. Kerchak, being overprotective, looked at Tarzan with a stern expression. "Protect this family, and stay away from them." Tarzan, who felt like he was being treated like some soldiers, didn't want to listen to Kerchak. Even Kala told Tarzan to do it for once. Tarzan then showed back up at the camp to see Jane the next day. He met her father, Professor Porter, and Clayton, whom they hired for protection. Jane introduced Tarzan to her father, and Clayton, which Tarzan only said a few words in English. When Clayton asked Tarzan to take him along with Jane and her father to see the gorillas, Tarzan couldn't really speak English, so Jane suggested to teach them their language. As the next scene went on, about Tarzan's new friends teaching him the life of what humans do, he learned a lot from Jane and Clayton, the most. Mostly Jane, though. The song "Strangers Like Me" was being played throughout the whole scene. I enjoyed that song. It was one of my favorites of the whole movie. Tarzan grabbed a handful of flowers. He was planning on giving them to Jane when he saw the commotion going on. People were moving crates and stuff. Tarzan soon bumped into Jane while she looked at him. "Tarzan, I was wondering if you would come with us to England." Tarzan was hoping that they were just visiting and coming back home to Africa tomorrow, but Jane tells Tarzan that she will not be coming back. Tarzan kept telling Jane to stay, but she keeps telling him that she can't. She told him so many times that she couldn't. She runs off of the scene crying. Clayton talks to Tarzan about taking him along with Jane and her father to see the gorillas. At first, Tarzan didn't want to do what Clayton asked, but he finally gave in and made an idea for his human friends to see the gorillas. Tarzan disguised Turk and Tantor as Jane and Professor Porter to lure Kerchak away from the nest of gorillas, which worked for a while. Tarzan took his friends to see the gorillas, including his mom, Kala. Kerchak finds out later that Tarzan betrays him and his family. Kala then took Tarzan to the treehouse, where she found him as a baby. Tarzan looks at a photo of his mother and father, soon realizing that he was a human as well. Tarzan decides to leave with Jane the next day so that he can be with humans like him. He says goodbye to Kala that night, which made me sad. I knew what it was like to leave someone that you love behind, even if I had reasons to do so. When the scene transitions to a boat where Jane and her father and Tarzan climbed on board, it was a trap. Clayton had planned on capturing the gorillas to sell them. Tarzan shouts loudly at Clayton as Tantor and Turk found a way to swim to the boat to save Tarzan and his friends. Now, the movie went as smoothly as it can be until when the scene shows Clayton and his men attacking the gorillas, and even Kerchak was trying to protect his tribe. Tarzan, along with his friends, shows up to confront Clayton. However, this scene was a lot more darker than the Disney movie from 1999 that we have. When Clayton shot Tarzan, a loud gunshot rang loudly through my earbuds. I mean, shit. It scared the shit out of me. I turned the volume of my phone down so that I could still hear the movie, and when Kerchak roared in anger, he ran towards Clayton to attack him. Another gunshot rang, this time at least not quite as loud as the first one was, but the fight between Tarzan and Clayton just went as well as the original movie. Until it gets to the part where Clayton cuts through the vines to get to Tarzan when he accidentally hangs himself. The camera then pans out more to focus on the shadow of Clayton's dead body amongst the trees. I knew that scene would be disturbing, but other than that, I was fine with it, since I've seen the original so many times. Tarzan is now seen with a dying Kerchak. The gunshot wound was shown on the silverback. The wound a huge gash, a little bit too graphic than what I was used to. I felt a little sick to my stomach, but I ignored it and continued to watch the movie. Kerchak weakly looks at Tarzan with his last moments, and everyone else in the jungle. His breath was raspy as Tarzan got closer. Tarzan. Kerchak. Forgive me, Tarzan says to his dying tribe leader. No, Kerchak replied weakly. Forgive me for not understanding that you've always been one of us. Our family will look up to you now. I started to cry a little too. No, Kerchak, Tarzan replied sadly. Take care of them, Kerchak pleaded. My son, take care of them. Kerchak dies due to his wound. Tarzan then becomes the leader of the tribe, and the scene then cuts to Jane and her father leaving on a light boat to the ship. Jane, heartbroken, looks back at Tarzan on the beach. She felt her heart really belonged to him, so her father said to join Tarzan in the jungle and stay. Jane did so, and the happy ending was the same as the movie. After the end credits, though, I was just left speechless. I knew the movie was dark, but this version was a tad bit darker than the one that I know a lot from the original film. It was late at night by the time the movie finished, so I plugged my phone in the charger and I went to bed. The next day I was getting ready for work when I remembered the 1998 version again. I was a little freaked out about some of the scenes, some of the graphic ones. I mean, that might be why Tarzan didn't come out originally in 1998. It would have scared kids if it did, with those graphic parts in that. When I got to Best Buy, the worker John wasn't there. I wondered to myself what could have happened to him. Sooner or later, my boss on shift told me that John had left for unknown reasons. I don't know why he left either. And after my shift at work was over, I decided to watch the '98 version of Tarzan again on Google Play. I got home and went on my phone to look up the 1998 version, but I couldn't find it. All I found was the original movie of it, along with the other Disney movies. I tried looking everywhere, but I had no luck in finding it. I finally decided to look on recent purchases, but I couldn't find it on there either. I wondered, did Google Play take that movie down? If they did, they would have done it for many reasons to begin with, but I still intend to hunt for it. Even if I still can't find it. Maybe if I ever come across the 1998 version of Tarzan someday, I hope I can see it again, and for one day show it to my sister. Now that it's 2019, I'm still on the hunt for it. I still can't find it, even today. I tried everything, but nothing. Though, if I were to ever find it again, I'll let you all know.